This episode of Keys to the Shop is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Whether it's espresso machines, manual brewing devices, or general coffee shop needs, they seek to pursue the most innovative coffee products, both domestic and abroad, to offer their customers. Find out more at prima-coffee.com. This is Keys to the Shop, episode number 39, Lessons in Success from the Restaurant Industry, with Eric Cacciatore. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and I'm excited that you chose to join us today. I know that your decision to spend time listening to this show is going to be fruitful, and you're definitely going to learn some lessons today as we talk about lessons from restaurant professionals from the restaurant industry. You know, on our last Tuesday show, on episode number 37, we talked with Brian Bikey about the chocolate world and, different things that we can learn about our own profession and how to advance ourselves from that industry. We can learn so much from one another. And today, it's my pleasure to be able to welcome to Keys to the Shop, Eric Cacciatore. Eric is the host of the podcast Restaurant Unstoppable, and there's a 3-time weekly podcast dedicated to bringing in what Eric calls a melting pot of mentors. There's people who are successful in the restaurant industry and in food hospitality, and really mining the depths of their knowledge and delivering it to his audience. It's really inspirational for me because in a lot of ways I want to try to be able to do the same thing for you all with this show. So it's great to be able to talk with him. I was actually honored to be a guest on his show back in December, actually before this podcast started. We started in January, and on December 22nd, I was on the show talking about leading from where you are. We talked about kind of a manager's and leader's perspective on hospitality from, specialty coffee's point of view. So that's episode 291 of his show, Restaurant Unstoppable. Eric has interviewed over 300 people on his show, folks who are successful in their position in the restaurant industry, and it runs the gamut. All different types of chefs, all different types of owners, people who work in the food industry, and learned a lot in the process. You imagine, you've been doing this long enough, 3 episodes per week, you're going to take home a lot of value. And so today, what I asked Eric to do for us is to narrow it down to 5 things, which is kind of silly to ask somebody with that much content, but 5 things that he can share with us that are the common thread between the successful people that he's interviewed. What is it that they do or how they act, and what are the values that make them successful? And so we ended up with 6. So they couldn't narrow it down to 5, so there's 6. So I know we're going to learn a lot from Eric. And again, I'm really honored to have him on the show. So let's bring you to my interview with the host of the podcast Restaurant Unstoppable, Eric Cacciatore. Eric, how are you today? Welcome to Keys to the Shop.
Oh, man, I'm awesome. I'm feeling, as I would say, unstoppable.
Oh, yeah. Today. I was thinking, am I going to ask him that question? No, that's great.
Beat you to it. Can't stop, won't stop, Chris.
Well, like I said, it's an honor to have you on the show, and you've done such great work with your show, Restaurant Unstoppable. It's a really popular restaurant podcast on iTunes, and in particular, I think the value that it provides for people is the idea that over 300 people you've interviewed, right? How many people exactly is?
We're up to episode 350. I just recorded 359 today. Honestly, how many separate people that is, I lost track. It's probably around 325.
Wow. And it's a huge, it's a study essentially is what it is. It's like an audio version of a white paper on, market research for what these professionals in the restaurant world and entrepreneurs are doing. So, and then
it's funny. Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I look back at all the episodes. I'm like, oh man, at some point I'm gonna have to go through and listen to all these and actually like extract data, and it's gonna be fun. But man, I'm really creating a project for myself.
Well, nice knowing you, man. It's,
right.
Well, one of the things that strikes me too is when you're in the middle of doing it, when you're in the middle of doing the work of serving and being a successful professional, you don't really have a platform oftentimes. And one of the things your podcast does a good job of is kind of, I don't want to say unearthing these people because that sounds a little demeaning, but they're busy working in restaurants, and you give them a platform, and their wisdom and thoughts a platform on your show. And so today, we're going to talk about some of the top things that you have learned and see in common between all of these people that you've interviewed. But what I'm wondering first, before we get into that, is where did Eric Cacciatore come from? How did you get to this point where you've got this show, you're interviewing all of these successful restaurant people? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the fast forward version is I grew up in the restaurant industry. At the age of 3, my parents opened a restaurant. They had that restaurant until I was 13 years old. I continued to work in restaurants throughout high school and college. I went to school to become a commercial pilot, and I did that for 8 years until I was 26. I spent some time over in the Marianas Islands as a charter Part 135 VFR operation, flying cargo and passengers between the islands of North Mariana Islands. It's over by Guam. Did that for about a year, came back and entered my my real, like, the goal at that point for me was to become a commercial pilot, airline pilot. And I flew for a regional, and I did that for like 3 months, man. I did that for like 3 months, and I realized that I just wasn't really happy doing what I was doing. And to be completely frank, I wasn't really good at it either. Like I got as far as I did as a commercial pilot because I busted my ass and I put in twice as much work. And but at the end of the day, it just wasn't fulfilling to be surrounded by people who were good at what they did and they enjoyed it. And while I was a commercial pilot, I continued to work in restaurants because really commercial pilots don't make what they used to make. That's just the truth of it. Like, it's not the same job it used to be. So I figured, be broke doing something I love or be broke doing something I hate. So I chose to be broke doing something I love. I resigned from aviation. I went back to school for marketing and hospitality. And it was around this time that I discovered podcasts. It was a professor actually who introduced podcasts to me. I actually just interviewed this professor, and I tell that story. It was episode 350. David Mazer was his name, and he came in. It was one of the first classes I ever had with him. He came in to the classroom, and I think it was actually the first day of the first class. First day of that class. It was a sales and marketing class, and he came in. And he looked at everybody in the room and he said, "Who here listens to the podcast?" And nobody raised their hand. And he walked. This is going back like 5 years ago, probably. I was right around 26 years old. He walked out of the classroom, and you could see him. You know how those like college dorm or like those college classrooms have like the window with like the little metal like grate in between. It's like a little skinny window, right?
Right.
You can see through it. I could see, he looks left, he looks right, and we can see him. He's like out in the hallway. It's a night class, by the way, and you hear him say, "You've got to be effing kidding me!" And he yelled it in this classroom, or outside the classroom. He came back in to the classroom, and he's like, "You guys are all, you have no idea what you're missing out on. The power of podcasts. Anything and everything you want to know is literally just hit play, and you can discover it. So your assignment is to go home and." I want you to find 3 podcasts and start listening to them. So I went home and I iTunes keyword searched. I think it was personal growth, entrepreneurism, and hospitality. And as you can imagine, there were just an abundance of personal growth and entrepreneurial podcasts. And there was absolutely no hospitality podcasts. So that was my first clue, I guess. At this point, I didn't recognize it as a clue. So I started listening to podcasts every day. So at this time, while I was going to school, I was also working at a winery as an assistant winemaker, and I was by myself every day in the cellar cleaning out tanks, like wine tanks, cleaning all the muck and yeast and sediment out of the wine tanks. And
Fun.
oh yeah, it was really cool. Honestly, it was climbing into a 500-gallon tank with like 160-degree pressurized hose water. It's my pores were never cleaner. It was like a little sauna, but I actually kind of enjoyed that part of it. But anyway, the point is I was alone, just consuming all this content, surrounding myself with the influence of incredible people, sharing what they know to be true about success. Like these entrepreneurs, these people who have just made it in life, and now they're just giving all their knowledge away. And it was so powerful. And to be completely transparent and honest, this was a very dark time for me. I $200,000 in debt. And I'm back in school, paying as I go, and I had no idea how I was going to get myself out of this hole. I'm still not out of the hole, but the power of surrounding yourself with people who are successful, sharing their stories, sharing what they had to go through to get to where they are, it was so uplifting. And I might have been $200,000 in debt. I'm still in debt, but I'm moving in the direction towards, being proactive, taking control of my life. And it was all because of podcasts. And it blew my mind that there wasn't anybody doing this for the aspiring hospitality professional, that all these tech entrepreneurs are out there sharing their knowledge, what they know to be true to become successful. The restaurant industry, massive industry, like one of the biggest in the world, and nobody's sharing what they know. And it just blew my mind. So one day I just got the idea to just start asking the questions. And that's kind of how it all started.
And 359 episodes later, here we are.
Yeah, that was meant to be the short version. Ended up being the long version. I apologize.
Well, yeah, I mean that was great. It's inspiring to hear anybody start to take control, take the reins of their life, and push themselves towards a vision. That's one of the things we're actually going to be talking about. But for sure, there is a lot of information out there, and part of the process of producing that information or the process of getting good information is knowing what's good and what's not. Curating all of the content that's out there, because you could listen to the wrong people and do the wrong things. And so that's a heavy burden, and I'd say that you've done a fantastic job at that.
And just a little caveat there, like what you said, knowing what's good and what's not. And honestly, I'm still learning that. And you hear something, the more interviews you do, the more trends you start to see. And that's one positive thing about doing 350 interviews is you start to see the more common answers, And but the truth is, like, that search for what's right and what's not right should never end. You always have to look. You always have to question your perception of reality and never necessarily just take for granted what you're told. Always challenge things. Like, don't just settle for what you heard one time.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah. Then you're kind of coasting, and you don't have you don't have the reins anymore. You're just kind of flowing without a foundation. So the trends that you've seen over time, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And I asked you a bit of an impossible question, which was to narrow down to the top five most common or important things that you've heard from these successful restaurant entrepreneurs and professionals. And we have 6. So
yeah,
I'm sure there was 26, and then there was 6, but there's surely a lot.
It was a challenge, dude. Not that I couldn't come up with things, but like to come up with the 5 most important without really backing it up with specific, like, I didn't go through and like count how many times I recommended each time on the show, but I got it down to 6. So I hope you don't mind. I threw an extra one in there.
Oh, that's great. I don't mind at all. It's a bonus. So we're going to, we're going to get into these. Why don't we start with, we're going to start with the first one that you have noticed in your interviews. And that is that these people that are successful in the restaurant industry that you've interviewed have focus, clarity, and vision, basically on what they want in life and what they want to become. Can you just tell us more about that? How does that apply to those of us who are in the hospitality world?
Yeah. So as I was creating this list, the list was like 15, 20, and then I started like smushing some of them together. And that's why it's focus, clarity, vision, because it's all kind of like right there. They all kind of relate to each other. And what I mean by that is the people who do really well in this industry have a vision of what they want to become and what is important to them. They're very clear on what their values are and what their mission is. And that's their guiding ship. Like that's their center line. And I'll bring back like pilot terms. Like when you're landing an airplane on a runway, your job is to keep it on center line. And by having that vision and being clear about where you're headed and what your job is, you can keep that plane on the center line. And when you'll drift over time. You'll go left of center line or right of center line. But to have that clarity, and if you commit it to writing your vision, your mission, and you focus on doing that thing that you do, when you do start to drift, you can bring it back to center line. You can catch it and bring it back to center line. You can catch when you're not who you say you were and who you said you wanted to be, and you can go back to that, whatever it is that is driving you, that vision of whatever you had of what you wanted to become.
So that means like you're starting out in, let's say, hypothetically, you're starting out in the hospitality industry, whether it's in a restaurant or a coffee bar or whatever, and you have a vision for what you want to be. Over time, who we are changes. And I imagine that at some point the vision shifts, and maybe there's wiggle room to like say, okay, there's a new vision. Do you see that often? Like is there danger in sticking to your original vision and sacrificing the best for the original?
That's a good point. And your vision is going to change over time. Your concept of what idealism is going to change over time. The more you learn, the more you develop and grow as a person and a professional. That's going to change. And I think the most important thing is that you have a direction and you're going in one direction. So I'm trying to think. I had an analogy at one point. It's better, say like your vision or your direction is north, right?
Right.
And you start going north. Your vision might change, but it might change like 1 degree left or right. So if you're still going in that general direction, you're going to be better off than going in circles. So start somewhere, have some kind of vision, and you can tune that vision and hone in over time, but at least go in one general direction. Go towards the North Star, go north. And as you evolve, as you learn, as you develop yourself as a person and a professional, you're going to get clarity in that vision is just going to get like, imagine like an angle, just like closing tighter and tighter and tighter, and eventually you're going to have super fine pinpoint accuracy, like vision and clarity on what you want to become, but you need to move in that general direction first.
Man, that's great. It's also a sometimes cart before the horse thing I see in young professionals sometimes will want to get to that farthest point of the angle and get so specific that they're bound to be disappointed, and rather than having that general, like, I want to learn as much as I can about being a great chef or a great barista, and then that's the general direction. But then if you say, I want to be a sushi chef in this state, in this county, and it's so narrow that you're not leaving your options open.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if I use myself as an example, like when I started this podcast, I started it because I wanted to learn from successful restaurateurs what it takes to be successful, so I could one day open my own restaurant. So my mission was to learn. My vision was to become a restaurant owner someday. And I'll be honest, right now, I don't want to be a restaurant owner. Like I do ultimately someday, but I've learned enough to know that I'm not ready right now. So my vision right now is to get to the point where I can become ready. Your vision is going to change, but my direction is still moving in that, I'm still going in that direction. Now my vision is preparing myself, which means getting enough capital behind me, because that's just a huge part of it that you have to accept that you need a lot of money behind you. And the other thing is you need a team behind you. And, I don't have either of those things. And I've learned a lot about myself that I'm going to need a team of people to pull it off. So your focus, your vision does change over time for sure.
And I used to want to open a coffee bar. I'm in your same boat. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't know. I'm not going to rule it out for the future, but as soon as I get into coffee, I thought, man, the first thing I need to do is open a coffee bar. and so glad that I didn't try to do that. So
yeah. So, I mean, just to be clear, like I still want to own a restaurant someday. I just know now because of what I've learned that I'm not there yet. So yeah.
Well, in the pursuit of your vision, as you move forward, as you gain maturity in work, in life, one of the things that helps out, and is the second thing on your list from these restaurant professionals that you've learned, when you got that focus, clarity, and vision, you have to apply discipline and good work ethic, a solid work ethic. So I imagine there's a lot of that is behind the success stories of these folks that you've interviewed.
Yeah. One of the things I love about the hospitality industry, food and beverage, cafe, restaurant, whatever you want to call it, is that if you have the work ethic, the drive, and the discipline to show up every day, like that will outwin smarts almost like 9-1. You know, like you need to be smart too, but really at the end of the day, what will determine your success in this industry is your ability to outwork other people. Look at Jamie like Bissonette, for example, who was James Beard, best chef Northeast a few years back. He said his it factor is just that being a beast, showing up every day and just almost just being a glutton for punishment almost. And the truth is you're going to have to show up for at least 5 years of just putting yourself through the ringer, and really just almost abusing your body, which is why it's so important to do it while you're young, to get that ball going and to start building that momentum as early as possible, because you need to put the work in first. You need to develop those skills. You need to surround yourself with great people who are going to teach you, give you knowledge, and develop that reputation of being a beast, of creating that integrity for yourself. And over time, all that will compound. But it's such a competitive market. There's so many people that want it just as bad as you do, that you just got to sacrifice and just have the discipline to make work your number one priority. Maybe second to your personal health. Maybe second to like religion or like family, but it's got to be up there. Like on the weekends when all of your friends are going away on vacation or having a party, like you got to work. Holidays, you got to work, and you need to know right now, like, do I have that discipline? Do I want it bad enough to have that work ethic, to show up every day and to outwork everybody else? Because at the end of the day, really, that's what it comes down to, is outworking everybody else.
I'm curious about the nature of discipline, in that if you show up for work every day and you work really hard, I mean, you could work really hard at the wrong things and still not get anywhere. Like somebody who has 20 years of hospitality experience, but in usable experience, they really only have 5, because they've been really working hard, but kind of in the wrong way, in the wrong areas. So it seems like what part of discipline allows you to focus in on applying that work ethic to the right things when you're there? Like you could definitely sweat and bleed and not get anything for it.
I feel like discipline, as far as applying discipline to the right things, the right thing is growth. Are you learning new things? Are you pushing yourself to do it better? Do you have the discipline to set a standard for yourself and to not settle for anything less than that standard? And if you are constantly working to be a better version of yourself than you were the day before, and I think that's where discipline comes in, to show up, to have the work ethic, but then to hold yourself to that standard of excellence day in and day out, and constantly challenge yourself to learn new things, to learn new skills. And that's a good point that you bring up. Like you could be 20 years doing the same thing and you haven't grown at all because you're doing the same thing for 20 years. One thing I have learned from many of my guests is that during that 5 to 6 years where they're working their ass off harder than anybody else, they give at least 1 year to a job, right? Because they want to develop that reputation of being somebody who will stick with you. If you're going to train them and invest your time in them, they're going to give back to you sometime for the investment you put into them. But they're taking jobs intentionally that will teach them a new skill, or maybe they're interested, or they might be passionate about, say, making pizza. So they'll go work for like the best pizza shop in the city. And they take jobs intentionally to learn specific skills or to be surrounded by certain people that will bring something to their resume, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So basically what they're doing is they're developing, they're fine-tuning, getting even further clarity on what it is that they want to become, discovering their passions. And they do that by taking jobs at different niches of the industry to not only learn new things, but to become a person of value, to get new skills. And over time, they are going to, they'll find something that really lights them up on the inside, and they'll lean into that. But I mean, one of the things on the next thing on the list is how do you get your foot in the door to some of these restaurants? I mean, how do you surround yourself with the most influential people? And I think what the most successful people in our industry do, they'll do anything to get their foot in the door. They'll, what we call a stage, where you go and you work for free, like an educational thing. But even further than that, like they will work for free washing the dishes. They will literally do anything that gets them into that restaurant. And then once they're in, and once they prove themselves to whoever it is they want to learn from, like that's when the opportunities start coming. So I guess the third thing is to you've got to give before you get. You've got to give of yourself, give your time, your blood, sweat, and tears to great people before they're going to invest their mentorship into you, their knowledge into you. So, I mean, that whole idea of give before you get can be applied to everything, though. So it can even be applied to when you're a restaurant owner. The people who look to give to others and leave onto the world more than they get from the world are the people that become most successful. I mean, they're the people that have the most favors owed to them, because they're so generous with their time, their knowledge, and what they do that over time it compounds.
I imagine it makes you a better person in general, which is really satisfying because you can be ambitious for a position and you can get it, but man, you could really be a shell of a person by the time you get there. Yeah,
it's weird. It's like most people aren't willing to sacrifice and to give up of themselves. They want to get first, right? Like, what's in it for me? Like, what are you going to give me? But really, you're not going to start to get ahead and to get opportunities until you start making it about everyone else, about what you can give to other people and how you can serve other people and what value you can bring to the table before you look to take value off the table.
Man, that's deep stuff because, I mean, what you're describing, I feel like the restaurant industry, and this is probably a no-duh moment, but is a lot more cutthroat than baristas in coffee bars. It's a much more developed hospitality industry, so it makes sense. So the best thing for somebody to do is to serve other people and to give before they get. And what it sounds like is that in order to get and to be fulfilled, you need to serve first,
Oh, absolutely.
But if you don't do that, you're not really going to learn much about your industry because you're so inwardly focused all the time. You're not really looking around you to see opportunities to serve. And you probably are going to miss opportunities in general if you're always focusing on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Just everything that's ever happened in my life as far as opportunities has come from me volunteering my time. And it's amazing what will come to you when you look to give without look for return. So much will come to you from being generous. And it's the natural order. Think about exhaling, right? When you exhale, you're giving out your carbon dioxide to the plants, right? And the natural thing to do after you exhale and you give to like the plants, you have to inhale. The natural order is to take in afterwards. But first you can't inhale until you've exhaled first.
So before we continue on here talking with Eric, I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about our sponsor, Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is a specialty coffee equipment supplier that's based out of Louisville, Kentucky. And from the beginning, they've set out to make the best coffee brewing equipment available to the general public. Now, their focus is on curating the best equipment for every need, from grinders to espresso machines to under-counter fridges. It's pretty much anything you can think of or would need in your coffee shop or for your personal use at home to brew great coffee. You're going to want to look at Prima Coffee. They put a huge emphasis on having the expertise to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. I've known these guys for a long time. They are just fantastic professionals, and they do a great service for us in the industry. So I'm really thankful for everyone there at Prima. So you should definitely go to prima-coffee.com. Check out what they have to offer. It's a lot, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So thank you, Prima Coffee, for your support of Keys to the Shop and for supporting us in the industry with the tools we need to do our jobs well. Now let's get back to our conversation with Eric Cacciatore. So the next thing that is on your list, so we've gone through and we've got the focus and clarity and vision, and we're disciplined and we've got a strong work ethic. And then we're looking to see what we can give to others and to our industry before we're looking to just get what we want to serve. And your fourth point here is the people who are successful, they know their lane and they stay in it. Yeah. They're a specialist. So explain what that means.
So when you're out there giving of yourself, volunteering, staging, learning, becoming a person of value, you're going to learn more about yourself too. You're going to discover things that fill you up, that light you up, that you're passionate about. So you need to find your lane. And the other thing that's going to be happening too is you're going to find out what you're good at and what you're bad at. And a big part of becoming successful is doing the things you're good at. So the beautiful thing about the restaurant industry is if you're not good at something, you're going to find out real fast. You'll get weeded out. The natural order will take over. The other line guys will kick you off to the side and say, get the hell off the line. Like you're dragging us down. There's not enough room for margin. Like you will find your weaknesses. This is very humbling work. Like if you're not good at something, you will find out fast. So it forces you into your lane and where you belong. And then once you find out what your strengths are, where you're good, like for me, for example, I'm a front of the house guy. I can't work the line. I did pretty good on a pizza station at one point, but that was my little home. And if I got out of that safe zone, I was awful. Where I'm strong is with people, social and emotional intelligence, caring for the people I work with, being a supportive staff member. And that's really where I'm best, is in supportive roles. My favorite role in the restaurant is as a host, because I'm constantly scanning and paying attention to how everybody else is doing. And I can jump in and lift up this person if they need help, or I can go over to that table because I can clearly tell that table is unhappy. They're looking around. Like I have awful ADD, so my mind's always bouncing all over the place. Like my job is to be a supportive role and to jump in where I need to be helped, or where I'm needed, and just to help everyone else, to make it about everyone else. So that's what I've learned about myself working in the restaurant industry. Like I belong front of house with people, making people happy, and being a supportive role. And you only learn that through getting in there and doing it. So as you learn more about yourself and you discover your strengths, your weaknesses, and your passions, what you love to do, what it is. I mean, this industry is all about bringing happiness to other people. And there's numerous different vehicles and modes in which we can do that, whether it be through pizza or sushi or Mexican food. So whatever it is that lights you up, that gets you excited, lean into that thing and share that thing with the world. So the point being, the most successful people in this industry know their lane. They know what they're good at, and they stay in their lane, and they become a specialist at one thing. I mean, you'll be way better off in life being the best at what you're already naturally good at than trying to improve your weaknesses, for example. And the best you'll ever be improving your weaknesses at best is you'll be subpar. You'll be okay at a bunch of other stuff. But if you know what your strengths are and you look at becoming the best at what you're already naturally good at, and you have the passion to back it, you'll go much further.
A lot of people, what you just said, I think runs, I see where you're coming from with it, but it does run contrary to what a lot of people tell you. So your natural inclination is to, wander into a Amazon bookstore and look at books that will help you with your weaknesses. And we all want to work on our weaknesses, but it seems like, you'd have to sort of be okay being weak in these particular areas. But I feel like your next point, number 5, really helps that. If you're a specialist, you're supporting the whole, and that whole is made up of people who are better than you at the things that you're weak. So number 5 was they surround themselves with people who are strong where they are weak.
Exactly. So to be the best in this industry, you can't do it alone. That's another thing. The most successful people or the most successful restaurants that I discovered there's partners. There's a partnership there. There's people behind the scenes. You might have that celebrity chef who you think is running the show, but they've surrounded themselves with people who are way smarter and more talented at certain things than they are. But yeah, that's part of the secret sauce is by surrounding yourself with people who are strong where you're weak. So if you belong in the kitchen and you're an amazing chef, I mean, I don't care how good of a cook you are. If you can't deliver an amazing service and have all those other elements, you won't make it. So be a specialist, become a person of value, and then use that value to attract onto yourself other amazing people who are strong where you're weak, and then recognize that greatness in them, partner with them, and then do something truly amazing together.
It's a team sport. In hospitality is it's a crapshoot, really. You don't know what the day is going to hold. So much of the day is reacting to situations that come up from guests or from, interpersonal conflict and things like that. But if everyone's in the place where they're strongest, it's probably going to be okay by the end of the day. And so having a strong team is really, really important, it seems. And I would add too, I think that, and I guess this is a question I have about what you just said. When you're just starting out, you're kind of going to be weak at everything, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you don't know what you're strong at until you've done it. So that's why, it's important to get in there, like we talked about earlier, and take jobs in different places. Do it for at least a year, because you don't want to create a bad reputation for yourself for being a job hopper. But get out there, take jobs intentionally, and to learn new skills, and the natural order will push you into the lane you belong in. You can also surround yourself with people who are strong where you're strong. And that's, I think, another kind of caveat is, like, you don't want to be the strongest person in the room. The most successful people are okay with not being the best in the room. And by surrounding yourself with other talented, passionate, great people, it's only going to lift up everybody else. It's only going to challenge you to be better and show up every day. And if they're better than you are, you know what? Like, get out of the way. Octavio Mantilla said, you can accomplish anything in life if you don't mind who gets the credit. So surround yourself with people who are strong where you're weak, and surround yourself with people who are stronger than you are too.
Man, that's hard to do. The credit thing is really hard to do.
Yeah.
Because I think most of us want credit for especially hard work.
Yeah. Well, I guess, let me ask you this. Do you know who Octavio Mantilla is?
I actually do not.
Okay. So kind of supports my point is, well, have you heard of John Besh?
Yes.
Besh Restaurant Group? Yeah. He's John Besh's partner. So there's people who can accomplish anything as long as they don't mind who gets the credit. So he's not getting any of the credit, but I guarantee you, John Besh, you wouldn't know who he is if Octavio Mantilla wasn't his right-hand man.
That's a great point. So, and it's going to take a certain level of maturity to really get to that place of being able to give credit away in exchange for success.
Yeah. I mean, I can give you another example, the Vetri Restaurant Group. Have you heard of the Vetri family of restaurants out of, I think, Philadelphia?
I have not, actually, yeah.
Oh, well, or maybe it's Mark Vetri. I can't remember his first name. Chef Vetri. Well, he's another perfect example. And you have Jeff Benjamin, who is the right-hand man to Chef Vetri. But again, another example of this guy who's super successful, but he's not the face of the company. The chef is usually the face. But, you can accomplish anything as long as you surround yourself. I mean, Jeff Benjamin isn't an outstanding chef. He's not. He's a front of the house guy. But he knew that if he wanted to be truly successful, he was going to need that chef element. So what did he do? He surrounded himself with people who are strong where they're not,
Well, this has been really fascinating. I'm taking a lot of cues from this that I'm going to think about a lot after this interview for sure. And it brings us, I think, to a place where if we're kind of following our hypothetical professional through this progression of the top 6 things, and they've accomplished all of these, at a certain point, they are going to have a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom. And they might be a guest on your show. They have a lot of things to share with a broader audience. And your number 6 on the list is that these folks that are successful, they mentor other people. They care for and mentor other people, and they realize that their success hinges on their ability to lift up and empower.
Yeah. So this right here is very close to the third thing that we share, that you have to give before you get. If you ask anybody right now, I'll ask you, what would you say the biggest challenge for most restaurant owners is right now in the industry, or that across the board is the one thing that most of us are struggling with?
Staffing.
Yes. So how do you attract onto yourself amazing people?
I'd say you'd have to be attractive first, and it would depend on how you go about that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the most successful people in this industry are the people who give the most to their employees, who care the most for their employees, who mentor, they spent their entire lives learning about what it takes to be successful. And I could argue that all of our purpose in life, the one reason why we all exist on this planet is to learn as much as possible and to take what we've learned and pass it to the next generation to further ensure the continuous, that our species continues into the future. At the essence of it all, our job is to survive as a species. That's why we live, to reproduce, survive. Part of that is giving our people, the next generation, the knowledge, wisdom, culture that they'll need to survive. Maybe that's a little too deep, but
no, it's fine.
The most successful people, they're mentors. They care. They realize that their job is to make the next generation of professionals successful, and that's what they do. That's what their mission is. Their mission is to develop the next wave of professionals that are going to come up underneath them. And I'll tell you what, like the best restaurateurs in the industry, that's what they've done. They started off small. They surrounded themselves with talented people. They developed those people. And then those people hit the ceiling as far as how far they can go within that restaurant, right? They can't grow anymore in that restaurant. They end up going off and opening their own restaurants. But the most successful restaurateurs go, this guy's got something, or this gal's got something. She's got what it takes to be successful. I'm going to invest in her. I'm going to mentor her. I'm going to give her the capital to go open her own restaurant. She's just going to do it under, our restaurant group. That's what a restaurant group is. So they find out the recipe to success, and they teach other people how to do it. And then they just grow laterally. That's, if you want to see how this works, check out Ari Weinswag of Zingerman's. That's exactly what they did. They created Zingerman's community of business. They started as a delicatessen, and they taught their people the skills, the knowledge, they gave them the tools, the culture, the lens through which to see the world. And then when that person wants to go on and do their own thing, say it be a bakehouse or a coffee house or a restaurant or a candy shop or ice cream shop, they take that person and they have a Zingerman's ice cream shop, a Zingerman's bakehouse, a Zingerman's roadhouse, and they have all these partners because they already have the culture, the same, the same attitude, the same values, because it came up through the system. And that's what you do.
So a lot of the people that you interview, when they are forming these restaurant groups, and it's fantastic that the people are given an opportunity. And I didn't really, honestly, I didn't know about restaurant groups and how those are kind of organically grown from the inside. And so many of the people you interview are owners, they're entrepreneurs, and that's a huge focus of your show. And one of the things, though, that I think might be helpful is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but even if you're not an owner or an entrepreneur and you just work as a chef de cuisine or something like that, and you're happy where you are, like you're in your lane, you're happy there, you can still mentor from where you are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone, almost no matter where you are in this industry, whether you're the lowest man on the totem pole you might argue is like the dishwasher or something, but even that's not necessarily the right way to see it. You really want to see a flat hierarchy, but there's always going to be somebody in this industry that's new. It doesn't like the turnover is high. Like if you're at a restaurant for 2 months, odds are there's going to be 2 new people that are like newer than you are. So you can teach what you were taught by whoever trains you onto the next person. And that's kind of like back to like Zingerman's and Aria Weinswag. They have this culture of everybody's a leader. Everybody that they hire is expected to be a leader. That means that no matter who notices something that's not right, the dishwasher could notice the owner cutting a corner, and it's the dishwasher's responsibility to say, hey, Ari, like that's not where that goes. And they're encouraged to hold each other accountable to all be leaders.
Everyone being leaders is a great concept, and it's also the personal responsibility it takes is part of the process of becoming a mature professional, it seems. So so in review, we have the top 6 things that you've seen, and of course we know from the beginning there's a lot of things. There's more. It was like 15 or 16. So people are going to have to listen to your show to get the rest of the 359 things they can learn.
I knew I was going to be jumping all over the place, and as I talk, there's more stuff I want to talk about. But I mean, yeah. We have a time constraint. I realize that. I'll try to hold it back.
So we have focus, clarity, and vision, discipline, work ethic. That's number 2. Is their discipline. There's a good work ethic. Number 3, they look to give before they get. Number 4, they know their lane and stay in it. Play to their strengths, be a specialist. And number 5, they surround themselves with people who are stronger than they are, and that helps the team really in their career. And number 6, so we just got done talking about the mentorship. They care for other people, and their success hinges on the ability to empower other people. These are empowering. These 6 things, I think, are things that we should all just kind of mull over for a long time. Is there a secret 7th one?
Oh man, I could just keep going. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to energy, right? You either positive or negative. You either add to or you take away. That's the yin or the yang. Like that's the most simple. No matter how you try to break things down, you're either adding or you're taking away. You're positive or you're negative. Or you're negative, and you can choose which one you want to be. Which is the most powerful. The most powerful thing is people who are successful understand that they choose how they're going to show up today. And that's a beautiful thing about the human mind. The prefrontal lobe allows you to not let your emotions get the best of you and choose to be something. So choose to be positive. Choose to come to work every day. Be that person that brings your positive energy into work, in that you become infectious and you lift up everybody around you. And that's what the best leaders do. They make everyone around them better. They lift everyone up around them. And they choose to add value to everyone they touch. They choose to leave this world better than the way they found it when they came into it. So choose to be positive. Choose not the dark side, but the light side. I don't know. I'm not much of a Star Wars fan, but
yeah,
be a Jedi.
Be a Jedi. That's it. That's it. Man, that's awesome stuff. And I want to know, so now that we're all, wrapped in attention, how can we get a hold of you and learn more about what you're doing with your podcast? How can folks reach out to you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Eric Cacciatore. That's EricCacciatore, just like the chicken. Facebook /Restaurant Unstoppable. Feel free to shoot me an email, eric@restaurantunstoppable.com. And then the website is restaurantunstoppable.com. And I do 3 episodes a week. It's a hustle, but I love every moment of it. I'm learning so much. I'm meeting incredible people. And yeah. I think that answers that question.
Excellent, man. Well, again, I'm totally stoked to have you on the show, honored, and I know one thing is for sure, that you left us feeling unstoppable.
Awesome. Well, hey man, props to you too, because you're crushing it, man. You two are adding. You're choosing to be an adder. The work you're doing, you're showing up, you're providing this value, and you're leaving people better off than the way you found them. So good on you, dude.
Oh, well, I appreciate you saying so. Thanks again for coming on, man.
Cheers.
Well, I have to tell you that I was just absolutely pleased to just talk with Eric and to hear the lessons that he has learned around those 6 things. I know there's so many more, but by narrowing it down, I feel like there's sort of given us the foundation that, if we just jump off from any of those 6 things, if we just make those a part of our DNA as professionals, we're going to be able to find out what those other things are in our own careers, in our own journey into becoming more mature in the industry and more experienced. So in review, what Eric showed us is that number 1, you have to have focus, clarity, and vision. And in coffee, what does that mean? What does it mean to be focused and have clarity of vision? Well, I think first of all, obviously, you have to take take a hard look at what you want from the industry and how to progress and what your next steps are. And find people who have already gone there and talk to them about what it's like in that. Do you want to actually go there? Eric talked about how he wanted to open a restaurant, and I said that I wanted to open a coffee shop. As you work in the industry, sometimes your mind changes as you figure out what it's actually like to do that thing. So it's a good practice to sort of develop a general direction, like Eric said, and then you're going to go to the left and to the right. But if you're going in the direction of your vision, then you are on track, and you can give yourself grace and take your hits and take your victories, and they'll all make you the person that eventually you'll become. So, and you'll be closer to your goal. So number 2 was discipline and work ethic. The most successful people that Eric has interviewed, over 300 people here, have a discipline and work ethic that helps them be successful. And we can always work more, for sure. And you're going to have to decide what a priority things are. Sometimes if you work and you sacrifice like family or friends, it's not a guarantee that you're actually going to be successful just because you're working more. You've got to work smart, and you've got to work on the right things. And that takes networking and relationships, and just look at who you can work with that will help you focus in on where you should be disciplined. Now, number 3, we went from there and talked about how you need to be able to give before you get. So that's part of work ethic. Like Eric was saying, look how you can become an asset to the team before you look to get value from the team for yourself. That is huge. In that, if you just took that from this episode, I can't tell you how many years it's taken me to even grasp that in my career, and I'm still grasping it in different ways. So fantastic point. And again, this is common for anyone in work, I think, but it's really a salient point coming from people in the restaurant industry that you've got to look to give before you get. Number 4, you want to know your lane and stay in it. They know what they're good at, and they've become a specialist in it. And it takes time. Obviously, you're pretty much going to suck at everything until you know what you don't suck at. And now, years later, you're going to say, hey, I'm really good at management, or I'm really good at sensory analysis. You might want to become, do more cupping of coffee. You want to do more barista work in competitions. But you're going to have to insert yourself into the industry and really work to serve the whole well in order to know what those things are that you want to do. So it all kind of, like Eric was saying, bleeds into one another. So become a specialist. Really, when you discover what you're good at and what you're passionate about, focus in on that and become better and better and better. And that is what the restaurant professionals that Eric has interviewed all have in common. Now into number 5, they surround themselves with people who are strong where they are weak. You want to be able to not only know your strengths, but know what the strengths of other people are so that collectively you can become a really tight unit and have a well-functioning cafe or restaurant or whatever it is. It takes a certain amount of self-knowledge, but it's been said before by a lot of people that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Lots of variations of that phrase. And I tend to find that that's true because we all subconsciously look to mimic the behavior of the people that we are most familiar with. And if you want to become a really great barista, then you should hang out with really great baristas and people who are better than you. Surround yourselves with people who are strong where you are weak, and your strength will help them and their strength will help you. And finally, number 6, we talked about how the most successful restaurant professionals that Eric has interviewed have this in common. They mentor and they care for others. And they look to elevate other people around them and give back to the industry. Use those years of knowledge to help the next generation of coffee professional or chef. And it helps sustain your industry into the future and to become better and better and better. And you don't have to be an owner. You don't have to have ultimate authority to be a mentor. You just have to have more experience than somebody else and have a heart to give and have a heart to sort of be a servant leader in that sense. So really, this is all very powerful stuff. So number 1, focus, clarity, and vision. Number 2, have discipline and good work ethic. Number 3, look to give before you get. Number 4, they know their lane and they stay in it, these guys that are successful in the restaurant world. Number 5, surround yourself with people who are strong where you're weak. And number 6, mentor and care for others. That's going to take a lot of years of work to do all 6 of those things. And so we got our work cut out for us. And my thanks again to Eric for joining us on the show and really inspiring us and truly making us inspired to feel unstoppable in what we're doing in our industry. So thank you again, Eric. So if you like the show, Keys to the Shop, and you want to hear more and you want to learn more, just go to our website, keystotheshop.com, where you can find all of our past episodes. You can find downloadable show notes for this episode and also all the past episodes. And those are there as a resource for you, a print version, if you will, of the shows, the audio shows. And if you want to reach out to me directly, it's chris@keystotheshop.com. I would love to hear from you. And if you have a moment, go to iTunes and subscribe to the show. And if what you heard today was really helpful and you know somebody else who it might help, definitely share this episode and spread the love. And speaking of spreading the love, I'm really grateful for all of you who are listening, all of your feedback that you've given me on the show. It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to provide anything that I can from my own experience and also and especially the experiences of those who come on this show. It's been such a great time since January, and I look forward to many, many, many more episodes and topics and inspiring content. I feel like I've grown a lot, and I hope you have too. So go this week and take these 6 things. Think about them. Journal about them, search your soul, and start taking action on these things. And I bet you're going to find yourself advancing in your career and becoming, as Eric says on his show, unstoppable. So thanks once again for joining me. And as always, I hope that this episode, as well as all of our other episodes on the show, have given you keys to the shop.